Hey y'all, it's Dark Sugar Podcast coming to you fresh out the packet with everything black.
Hey y'all, it is Dark Sugar Podcast. Y'all, it's Friday. I just got off of work. I'm sitting here with my bestie who's going to assist me through this episode because I don't know why talking about pretty privilege, I sound bitchy. It makes me uncomfortable. No, it does. It like I have this little pit in my stomach because it's such a sensitive topic. As you know, I can only talk about it with certain people. And so her name is Meredith. We've known each other for 4 years. Yeah. Going on 5. And we've had this conversation off podcasting quite a bit. And I'm really interested to hear her perspective and listen to her experience. So if you want to just tell a little background info, what you do, how we met, maybe. And I think your identity and how you identify is very relevant to this podcast, this episode. So if you don't mind throwing that in as well.
Sure. All right. So I'm Meredith. Kiana and I have, like she said, known each other for almost 5 years now. The way we met is I was interviewing roommates. Kiana came over for a little roommate interview. We got along immediately. I think we just both fed off each other's energy and knew it was a good fit. So lived together for like almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we've seen each other at our ugliest. But also at our most beautiful, I think. But anyway, so as far as my identity, I am non-binary, queer. I've been out as queer since I was like 20, so oh my god, almost a decade. That's insane. I use they, she pronouns, and that's kind of me in a nutshell. I don't know, where should I go? Oh, what do I do? Well, right now I'm in between things.
What were you doing?
I was an educator, then a recruiter, so kind of a mix of experience, I guess. And right now I run a little vintage clothing and home decor company called Maple Canyon Vintage, so I kind of do a little bit of everything.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I want to just spitfire.
Okay.
And so, 1 second. So I'm just going to spitfire these. And I feel like it gradually gets more serious, the questions. I have about 10 or 11. So the first one, what features of other people are pretty to you?
It's a really good question because I think as a queer person, before I came out and I was, in the closet dating only men, I think I was given this story about what I was told had to be attractive in other people. And I really had internalized that. So I looked a lot at smile, eyes, hair, like really masculine things. But naturally what I'm attracted to is like feminine qualities or I really like when people play with the dichotomy of the masculine and feminine, both in their presentation and their personality. So I think what I find attractive in other people is kind of how they portray those qualities. So I really like kind of androgynous things now and sort of I think it comes out a lot in the way people walk and hold their bodies. And I think the way they speak to other people and how they assert themselves, if that makes sense. Because I think gender plays a lot into features. So I like kind eyes. Do you know what I mean? Like when you see kind eyes, you just know it. And it's not like you have to have like the most show-stopping beautiful eyes in the world, but like kind eyes, I can see your smile lines, like features like that. And I think strong hands, strong voice, those are things that strike me as kind of, beautiful in other people.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you don't have like, they have to be tall, they have to be short, they have to be none of that.
No. Have you seen them?
How refreshing. No, I know. I have to double check. I have to double check. I'm like, maybe there's a type I'm not seeing within all these people. Okay. No. Okay, cool. And then what features of yourself make you pretty?
Oh, that's a good question, and I feel like I'm going to refer to my previous answer because I think I have a lot of privilege in that I am conventionally beautiful. I'm white, I'm thin, I have light eyes, blonde hair. But to me, the things I think are most beautiful about my features, I would have to say, it's hard for me. Because I know it's like one of those things when people tell you you're beautiful all the time and you're kind of like, that's just a thing that people say. But I think that my eyes, I like my eyes a lot. I used to like my hair. Right now we're having a moment. But I really like my shoulders, I think, because they're strong and I think they allow me to play with my appearance a little bit more in an androgynous way. And I play roller derby, so a lot of, my strength and my skill as a player comes from my shoulders and being able to use them to my advantage. So that's something that I think is another one of my attractive qualities. That's to me. But to other people, it's, my face, my hair, my eyes, whatever.
Wow. That is such a well-rounded answer. And it was like deeper than I was expecting to hear.
Okay, well, good.
That's amazing. And I want to interject a little story because, and I love this because it gets deeper and I realize more as the years go by. When Meredith interviewed me as a roommate, if you did tell me these things, I don't remember where you're from, where you work, little tidbits about you. I completely forgot or wasn't listening or didn't care because Meredith's beautiful, y'all. She's very pretty. And so that's all I was paying attention to. I'm just like, wow, this girl's really pretty. So she's nice and then this and that and that must mean this and that, which it did. Like I got lucky right here. That was but I had definitely a pretty bias. And let me tell you, speaking with adults or just anyone after that interaction was so embarrassing because they were just like, oh, okay, so you saw the house. What do you think of the girl? Oh, she's so nice and pretty.
Yeah.
Okay, but like
pretty equals nice.
Yeah, pretty equals nice. And it happened several times. Yeah. And they were just looking at me like so concerned, like you don't know anything about her. You're just saying that she's pretty. And I had to, and then like several years later, I was like really thinking about it. And I'm like, yeah, girl, that sold. I was like, pretty, bet. Like and I just think about that all the time. And I'm like, wow, that's such a problem.
And I think it goes both ways because I had the same thought when I first met you. I was like, oh, she's beautiful. This is going to be a great fit. We really didn't even talk that much, if you remember. We really didn't. I just showed you around the house and asked you like what you do for work, made sure you had a job and could pay rent. And then I was like, cool, the room is yours.
Bitch, we barely spoke.
But it's funny because this is like what we were talking about over DM the other day, which is like, I think when you find people attractive, and this is like a scientific study that has been gone over hundreds of times, you attribute beauty to trustworthiness, which is why people, like Ted Bundy had so many victims and he was able to get victims so easily because he was quote unquote attractive, which I don't personally think, but at the time, I guess people thought that about him. So it's, yeah. And we got lucky because we both are genuinely good people. Yes, but how many times have you like met a girl in the bathroom at the club and you got her number and you went to brunch and you're like, oh my God, you're awful. I just liked you because you were pretty. You have the worst personality ever,
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah. It is.
No, that's so funny. I'm like literally looking back. I'm like, what did we even say to each other? Like, did we even talk? And so aside from this situation, can you explain a situation where your pretty privilege was super obvious?
Oh God, yeah. So I think back to like when I first moved to Arizona. My background is in education and I'm a teacher. So when I moved to Arizona, it was like during the Red for Ed strikes and everything. So it wasn't a good time for me to find a job in teaching. So I just kind of did odd jobs for a while and I was barely scraping by. So I was, constantly looking for jobs. And I remember I connected with the CEO of this company over LinkedIn. I have no background in recruiting. I have no background in IT, and that's what the company was focused in. And he asked me to meet him for lunch, and I made myself look super cute, showed up. He asked me about my background, and I was like, I have no knowledge about this whatsoever. Got the job the next day. And that's where I'm like, I directly tie that to pretty privilege, because when I started the job, we started working like half remote, half in the office, I stopped like trying to dress up for half of an office day because it felt pointless to me. So I would go in looking like very natural, not dressed up, like in jeans and a t-shirt. And the CEO started to get very like, he was done with me. He was just like, and the people he was hiring were all gorgeous blonde girls. And I was like, I'm starting to see a theme here. When I stopped trying, and when he realized that I was queer, it was like very much, we want you out of the group. Like, you're not one of us anymore kind of thing. So that's one distinctly pretty privileged kind of situation that I can see. And when you're not putting like an aggressive amount of effort into your appearance, I think people equate that with like, you don't care about how you look, so you don't care about your job, you're not a good person, that kind of thing, which is totally unrelated, like, obviously. But yeah, it's crazy.
Whoa. That's wild. And the fact that it was just like the way you dressed even made a difference. Because I'm thinking, I would treat you the same. You'd look the same.
Yeah. Well, like when I go for an interview, I'm not going to like, show up schlubby. I'm going to put on a little makeup, dress nice, but I'm not going to do that every single day. Not every day is an interview, you know what I mean? So I don't know what he thought he was going to get, but it wasn't that every day for sure.
Not every day is an interview. I'm dead. No, I love that. And so, okay. Oh, that wasn't the question. I'm like, this one I have like a hot takes question. That wasn't it. And I was looking at like, should I warn her? Okay. So recently I call a little update. You have updated your gender identity as non-binary. And we've spoken about this. And I validate how you feel. You started dressing more mask. Androgynous, you would say?
Yeah, I would say a little bit more mask.
A little bit more mask, okay. And I want to know what has been your experience with that shift of people's response, and how does your gender presentation affect your pretty privilege as a whole, you think?
Yeah, so I kind of, was struggling with the coming out as non-binary for a while. Like, I've known, obviously, for a long time, but it just felt like, because I was dating a lot of other people who were on their own gender journeys, so I never felt like I had the timing or the space to, like, really come out. And so I feel like at the time, years ago, I was kind of overcommitting to hyperfeminism and like really overplaying like super femme, wearing a lot of makeup, really doing my hair all the time, wearing a lot of very feminine clothing, and it never felt comfortable for me. I knew from the responses I was getting that I looked good, but I didn't feel good and it didn't feel like me. So when I, when I cut all my hair off, started dressing more masculine, I feel way more myself now. I feel way more comfortable in my own skin, but it's been really hard for me to kind of swallow the fact that the way other people react to me is so wildly different. And I've noticed this before too, because I have a lot of health issues, which have, caused me to gain a lot of weight and then lose a lot of weight. And I've noticed from that perspective, like, people treat you so much better when you're thin, so much better. It's fucked how much better. Like, people pretend like you're not even like there when you're larger. It's the more space you physically take up, the less space they want you to take up in their head. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy. So kind of similarly with, me changing my gender presentation physically, I think people still automatically see me and think woman, but now they think unattractive woman. Even though I'm not a woman, I think most people, if you're not in the queer community, you're not looking at me and seeing, oh, this is androgyny, this is a non-binary person, you look hot for, the category that I want you to be. You know what I mean? So because they want to categorize me as a woman, and I don't ascribe to the, gender norms that they think would be typical for a woman, they're like, ugly, because I'm more masculine. They're like, oh, a masculine woman is not attractive to me. Unless it's like this really weird niche of straight cis men who act like, either, this is the reaction I get from straight cis men now, either I'm their bro and they want to say the most like heinously disgusting misogynistic things to me and think that we're going to have like locker room talk, or, and men did that before when they found out that I'm queer and that I date women, but it's so much worse now. Like, it's on site now. Like, they see me and they're like, oh, you're gay. Like, we're going to be bros. And I'm like, you can see me out of this conversation because no, thank you. But women, I have noticed, approach me a lot more. Like, they don't find me quote unquote threatening, if that makes sense. So women are way warmer to me, like strangers, are much more likely to come up and be like, oh, I really like your haircut. Oh my God, I love your pants. You look so cute. And I'm like, cool, are we flirting? Usually not. They just think that I'm not threatening and that, they feel more of a safety with me, I think. But both, it's one and the same. They don't see me for the gender that I am. They see me in a box. And because I kind of break those gender roles physically and mentally, before we get to that point. But a lot of kind of the way people react to me is so different. I get doors slammed on my face now, like literally slammed on my face. I get ignored at the bar. They don't take my order quickly, which I didn't even realize my order was getting taken quickly when I was presenting super feminine. But now that I'm not super feminine, it's a noticeable difference. I'm like, oh, I'm waiting like 10, 15 minutes to get a bartender's attention. It's just harder to like feel like it's weird. It's just like, I'm almost invisible a lot of the time. And when I'm not, it's just like a really weird dynamic. So it's been very interesting to see how the physical change has, been connected to, how people treat me.
I'm just like so shook.
Yeah.
I'm so shook. Wait, that's insane. But the thing about women being warmer and nicer to you, I was reading when I was looking this up, I saw where women, okay, wait, no. Oh, never mind. Oh, okay, yeah, no. They said, sorry, I just like pulled up a tab, closed it. Okay, this is the right one. So it was saying that for job interviews, men are most likely to hire you, but women are most likely to not hire you because you're threatening. And so that's crazy that you're noticing that they're talking to you more because you were threatening before. Yeah. And that's just wild because I feel like I do the opposite. And when a girl's really pretty, I'm like, up her ass. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm trying to be nice.
No, I do the same thing.
Yeah, so it's weird for me to think.
But women, straight cis women who have internalized misogyny because they see other women as a threat, when they see another woman that they know is attractive, they are colder and they are more closed off, and they have that sense of competition that I was talking about earlier. They see you as a threat, so they're not as kind to you, or if they're kind, it's fake. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
That's crazy because even when I feel threatened, I'm like fawning. I'm like, let me just be extra nice to you.
I'm the same way, but also I'm gay.
Right. So now I'm like not unsure of which one's happening. I'm like, I don't know which one it is. That's crazy. Okay, so I realized I skipped a question. Okay. So this will be interesting because I'm going to go back to the warmer questions and then I'll throw you back with so after what features, so did you grow up pretty? Because I think this is a really interesting thing because I remember being in high school and so many girls, they peaked and they stayed there. They like plateaued. They're at their prettiest. They still look really pretty. And for being in high school, it was like, not only just it was like their faces matured faster than everybody else's. Okay. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, you've been pretty your whole life, like whatever. But then I'm noticing a lot of people were like in the longest ugly duckling or plain person phase, and then they hit 25 and 26 and like they just like blossom. Because low-key I feel like I don't think I was an ugly kid, but were people checking for me? No one was checking for me though. And in high school, no one was checking for me. And I remember I felt like I went through like a second puberty in college. Yep. And I gained weight. My boobs got bigger. My face like did its thing, whatever it did. And then that's when people were like, wow, you're so pretty. You're so pretty. And I'm like, y'all fake. Yeah. Y'all fake as hell. I was like, the switch up. Like what? Yeah. And so I want to know, pretty your whole life? Are you new?
Are you new to being pretty? It's a really good question, actually. I think because, like I said, I have the advantage of like just stereotypical quote unquote attractive qualities. Like I have light hair. I've always had light hair, light eyes. I'm small. Like I've always been that way. So I think I've stood out because I ascribe to like that Western ideal of this is what attractive is. Just how I naturally look. So I think when I was a kid, especially because when I was little, like a baby, I mean, I lived in Japan with my parents because my dad was stationed in Okinawa. So there I stood out like a sore thumb. And all the adults thought I was like a little doll and thought I was so cute. And I think that, like, you know, growing up, I look back and I'm like, ew, I was busted up looking. Like, I did not look cute. But I think because I lived in a small town and, you know, unfortunately, I think socioeconomic status plays into this a lot too, because I had a lot of resources to look clean and put together. I think I stood out in that way of, you know, my parents were not rich by any means, but I had like resources to like have clean, nice clothes, have haircuts, have good teeth, things like that. I think that kind of both those things combined put me at the top of the group. So I was hearing all the time, like, you're so pretty, you're so pretty. And I look back at pictures and I'm like, I was so unhealthy. Like, I had hypothyroidism that was so untreated. I had, you know, celiac disease that was untreated. So I looked really sickly. And my face was, like, very pudgy and, like, just, I was not looking cute. So I think, like, similar to you, I had a second puberty, but mine was much later. I think my second puberty was when I was, like, 22, 23. And that's when I think I really, like, blossomed. And kind of got a hold of, like, this is what my face looks like, this is what my hair looks like, and just kind of, like, learned how to dress my body and present myself in a way that was more conventionally attractive. Now, I've said fuck all those rules, but, yeah, no, I think I grew up, pretty. I don't think so. I think if I lived in Phoenix, if I grew up in Phoenix, I would have been an ugly kid. Do you know what I mean? I think it's contextual.
Isn't that weird how your number changes, like, where you go?
Yeah. But right now, like, I'm a Phoenix 5, maybe 6, 5, 6. If I went to, like, Oklahoma, I'd be a 10, you know? It's all about context.
What do they look like in Oklahoma?
I don't know. I just picked a random state in the Midwest.
I'm like, what's going on?
I don't know. They're eating a lot of cheese and butter over there. I feel like that could be.
No, you would be a 10 there, but I was thinking that you were going to say. I thought you were going to say New York or San Francisco.
I'm sorry, you should say New Hampshire, because that's where I'm from.
Okay, New Hampshire. No, Oklahoma too, probably. That was just so random. I'm like, is something going on there? But when I was in college, I remember, okay, here in Arizona, I feel like it's getting better because we're becoming more inclusive. But definitely, like, when I first realized I was pretty, I was like, oh, okay, I'm pretty. But then I'm like, oh, here I'm like a 7 pretty. Like, yeah. Got it. And then I went to Colorado to visit a friend in college. And people are like, wow, you're beautiful. Oh, my God. And I was like, what is wrong with these people?
Colorado, because this is something that I've noticed, because it all goes down to context. Colorado, people aren't, I feel like Phoenix and Scottsdale, they're like huge metro areas where the women all feel the need to get lots of filler. When you met me, I had lots of filler. I've since let that all dissolved, you know, like, but they feel like they have to look like a celebrity because we're on the West Coast, we're close to LA. Right. I think there's a lot of overlap there where there are these standards of, like, I have to look like a celebrity. I'm competing with Facetune. But places like Colorado, people are more like focused on outdoor hobbies, skiing, hiking. They're not, it's more of a functional, natural beauty instead of like, I feel like I need to look good on Instagram beauty. And so in those areas where you're like, your natural beauty is the norm, it puts you above the rest because you're not having to compete with needles and plastic surgery and that kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that today. This is very off topic, but I'm disgustingly, like, really into pop culture and like dumb pop news, but Kylie Jenner recently, first of all, I feel so dumb when she got her lips done. Okay, very obvious, but I didn't think she did.
I believed her. That fucking liar.
Yeah, and then she recently admitted to getting her boobs done, which I was like, girl, why did you lie about? Because in my head, I'm literally thinking we're all looking at you thinking, you just look like this. And she alluded to other things, but I'm like, can you just fucking say it so we can all...
You don't look like that.
I'm like, can you just say it so everyone can relax and, like, go on with, like, not comparing ourselves to y'all thinking that...
And here's the thing, too. Like, I know when you're a celebrity and your body is what you're selling and it's your commodity and it's your business and your brand, you have to hold yourself to different ideals. You have to invest in your product, which is you as a person. So it's not to say that those women are like doing something wrong, but it's by not admitting and acknowledging that there's a difference between being a celebrity and the way celebrities are held to a standard of, and like being a normal person who's a teacher, a doctor, you know, whatever. To not acknowledge that difference in what you have to do to keep your brand and product, you know, attractive to the masses, it's so detrimental, because we're all looking at her thinking, oh my god, if someone looks like that naturally, where the fuck is my glow up? You know, I must just be dirt shit ugly. Like, yeah.
Literally. And so that because when you said that, like the fillers and plastic surgery here in Scottsdale, I'm like, it just like reminded me. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. And I forget that sometimes what I feel like I'm like competing against, and I have to chill.
Yeah, you can't compete against hundreds of thousands of doctors, hundreds of thousands of dollars in doctor visits, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's wild. And so my next question, I know you have, I'm not trying to like make you upset, but I do want to ask you this question, because I have been hearing, when I was like looking up TikTok videos, pretty privilege, okay, what are people saying? And I want to know what's your response towards people who, and I really heard this even from like quote unquote friends, you know, when we're talking about trans people or people who are presenting androgynous or presenting femme when they're biologically male or whatever, and then they're like, they're complaining about the discrimination that they're experiencing, but they chose to look that way. So I want to know what your response is to people who do not have empathy for you know, gender fluid looking people, and when they're like, I was discriminated against, not even just pronouns, they're like, no, you chose to look like that, and so if you just looked how you were born or how you're supposed to, you wouldn't be experiencing that. There are real people experiencing discrimination for how they look.
Yeah, so I actually have a great response to that, and this is something that I've talked about in therapy ad nauseum. And that's why it took me so long to come out as non-binary, I think, because I had this idea in my head of, for so long, I was like, I would rather be uncomfortable in my skin and my body and present the way that society expects me to present, conventionally attractive, than be conventionally unattractive and feel comfortable with myself and my identity. And I struggled with that for so long, because I knew that I had pretty privilege when I presented really feminine. And I knew that that would change the way people treated me, how I, you know, attracted partners, how dating would, you know, be, how interviewing for jobs would be, just everything, how people relate to you in general. So I had to make that difficult decision. And it's agony, you know, dysphoria is agony. You have to make a choice between, am I going to be in pain and distress, putting on a costume every day that doesn't fit my identity, or am I going to present in a way that feels true to me, my gender, and my identity, and just kind of have to work every day through the, through the hate people throw at you. So it's like, it's not a choice. Just as like, you know, you're not choosing to be gay. I don't know who would ever choose that in today's climate. It's not fun, you know, when people are throwing slurs at you constantly. It's the same thing for people who are trans and non-binary. It's like, we didn't choose it. It's innate. I certainly, you know, while it's a choice to transition and to, you know, to commit yourself to your real identity and becoming something that you're more comfortable with, it's not a choice. It's the difference between life or death, honestly. The suicide rates for, you know, people who are in the closet are insane. It's, you know, that's why I think gender confirming surgeries and treatment they're life-saving. They're, you know, medical necessities. And those kind of things, I think, go hand in hand. You know, it's not like we're choosing to be discriminated against. That would be nuts. Who would want that? I mean, a lot of people choose to stay in the closet, and that's, you know, fine if that's your choice. But at the same time, that is choosing. It's almost, you know, choosing to be closer to death, honestly. So it's, yeah. I mean, discrimination sucks, but it's better to know that you're being your real self and you're not having to go through the pain of everyday people misgendering you, you know, grouping you in with your gender assigned at birth, and you having to just go along with that whole song and dance, it's exhausting. It's fucking exhausting. And you wake up every day and you look at yourself in the mirror and you think you're a fucking fraud. You're a phony. And you feel so disconnected from yourself and your body. Like, it's pain, you know? Yeah. So.
Thank you so much for going into detail about your own personal experience with that, because my thing is, like, anytime people talk about trans people or non-binary people, and I'm like, you have no idea what it's like. I have no idea what it's like. Yeah. So how would you start to build even a response to try to argue when you've never had to go through that? Yeah. And it's like, it's not just like being sad, everyone's sad. No. Like,
oh my God, I have the perfect analogy. It's sort of silly, but have you ever seen House Bunny?
Yes.
Okay, you know that scene in, like, towards the end where she's, you know, telling everybody, you know, the reason she became beautiful is because she had an allergic reaction to a medication she took when she was a kid, and it gave her fuller lips and glowy skin. And it's like, she's like, I was in agonizing pain every day because I was having an allergic reaction, but I kept getting sick on purpose so I could keep taking the medication because everybody thought I was beautiful. It's sort of similar to that. It's like, you want to choose to be in pain and be, quote unquote, beautiful to other people, or do you want to feel healthy and, like, sane and just be natural? Do you know what I mean? Be who you're supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's both, you know, goes back to the pretty privilege thing in general, but also, like, it's a silly way of kind of, you know, I think explaining to people who are not trans or non-binary how that kind of can feel, that dichotomy. So
yeah. No, I love that. Especially, it's like, yeah, you would feel sick. Yeah. And even now, right now, you talking about it, as much as an empath as I am, I'm like, I have no idea what that would be like. I think I just felt energetically a little bit, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, that's tough. And I think a lot of people, because, I mean, when you're closeted, you're so good at hiding it and that pain because you have to. If you give even a little bit of insight as to, like, this is who I really am, yeah. If you slip, people are going to catch on, and they're going to think it's fucking weird, and they're going to demonize you. And so you have to be very careful, like, what environments you're in. I still, you know, in a professional environment, I tend to, you know, sway more feminine and present myself more feminine, use she, her pronouns, because the workplace is not a place that I'm ready yet to come out and be subject to that kind of discrimination. Yeah, totally. It's super scary. And especially because, you know, I was a recruiter, we put our pronouns on LinkedIn. And, you know, I had to put she, her pronouns because I worked in the blue-collar industry, and blue-collar men are not going to want to talk to somebody with they, them pronouns, whether it's because it's difficult or because they don't accept it. And that's not to say that those people are not knowledgeable about these things, but it's just, as a whole, it's daunting, you know? So.
Wow. Yeah, because when I hear that argument, I'm just like, you have no idea. It is not that simple. And, like, yeah, like you said, like, why would you want to identify and have this discrimination on purpose?
Yeah. Nobody creates pain for themselves because they want to feel pain every day. Like, I mean, unless you're into BDSM and that's its own thing, like, you're not going to be subjecting yourself to discrimination every single day because it's funsies, you know? Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is totally. And so I want to shift maybe to the psychology of it all a little bit, in the way that my first dark thought, because I can go, like, pretty morbid and, like, weird sometimes. I remember one of my first dark thoughts that I said out loud. I was at a table at, where was dinner at my friend's house, and her friends who I just met were there. So we're all at a table, and I don't know if I had some wine or something, but I'm like, you know what, I actually don't think everyone's pretty. Like, some people are actually ugly, and it's okay. I just, like, blurted it out, and everyone was like, oh my God, like, are you a bitch? Like, what's wrong? Like, what the fuck? Everyone's beautiful. And I was just like, no, but everyone's not, and that's cool. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And I've noticed that while I don't have anything against the body positive movement, but I notice I lean way more body neutral, where I don't want to give a fuck about how I look and how attractive I am. And I know that sounds like, no, that sounds crazy, but it's like, I don't, and I remember, and it was actually a guy, what was it, last year, or the beginning of last year, he was like, he was like, you know, not that many people, and I'd hate even, like, repeating, he's like, not that many people, like, look like you, like, you know, you're like this, and your body's like that. I'm looking at him like, I don't give a shit, though, like, I don't care about that. And he was like confused, like, why am I not soaking it up? And I'm like, why does it matter?
Yeah, isn't it crazy how people can point out things to you that you have body neutrality about that create an insecurity you didn't even fucking know you had? I can think of so many times that's happened to me.
Really?
Yeah, the first time I met my ex on our first date, the first thing they said to me was, whoa, you have big feet. I was like, I didn't even realize my feet were big. What do you mean? Now I have that to worry about? Huh? Like, just created no, but going back to what you were saying, I think it's true. I mean,
Sorry.
I mean, they're kind of big for my
size
size.
are you?
I'm a size 8.
That's not big.
That's what I said.
Meredith.
But everybody else I tell that to, they're like, you have huge feet.
That's not big.
That's what I thought.
I'm an 8. That's not big.
Thank you.
That's so.
Maybe
that's
we both
average.
just have big feet and we're refusing to accept it.
I'm gonna look that up. That's the average women's size.
Right? That's what I'm saying. I'm like, it's average.
Watch
But
it be
also,
6.
we're both really short.
Watch it be 6.
I know.
So it's like 4 hours.
We're just saying it. We're just saying it definitively.
I can't.
No, but yeah, no, I agree with you. Like, I think everybody's beautiful, yes, but there are some people who are unattractive. There's a difference. I think beauty
Okay. Yes.
is different than being
Yes, I
attractive.
agree.
Like, it comes down to symmetry. It comes down to grooming. It comes down to your clothing. It's a lot of it, and I hate going back to this, but a lot of it is how much money you have. When I had a lot of money to be putting into my appearance, getting my nails done all the time, getting my hair cut constantly, I was more conventionally attractive because you have more resources to throw at your appearance. But that's kind of what you were saying. Like, body neutrality is better because you don't have to be putting so much thought and effort and money and energy into maintaining the status of being attractive. It's a weird balance, but like, when you can just kind of like accept the things that you have that maybe are a little bit ugly, you know, they're kind of your quote unquote wart, it's so much easier. But no, you're not wrong. Like, you know, when you look at somebody and you're like, you're unattractive. It's true. And it's because it's been so ingrained in us, but it's also like a biological thing. Like, I know when your face is unsymmetrical. I know when your teeth are crooked and they look like they're going to fall out of your head. Like, those are things you're like biologically attuned to notice because, I mean, I think because, you know, it goes down to like, you know, reproduction. Mm-hmm. So I think for a lot of people, and then I think, you know, it's nature versus nurture. You know, a lot of that is nature, but it's so ingrained in us over time. And also, you know, being a queer person, when I started dating women and having sex with women, the things that I was insecure about in my own body, I saw as so beautiful in other people's bodies that I was like, oh my God, it's so much easier for me to not be self-conscious about these things anymore. Like things like body hair, pimples, you know, stretch marks, folds, just things like that. That I'm like before I was so paranoid on my body. When I was, you know, sleeping with men, I was uncomfortable to begin with. But second of all, I was like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm hideous if I have one hair out of place. And I don't want to like be subjected to that kind of like, you know, I'm not valuable if I'm not pretty. And then, you know, it was so affirming, you know, being in relationships with women after that, and, you know, AFAB people, because it was like, our bodies are so natural and so beautiful on their own. And it made me so much more comfortable with like, there's just one thing I hate about my body, and now I feel like it's beautiful and I'm not afraid to show it off. Like, I never wore bathing suits before because I was like, I don't want people to look at my body because I'm hyper attuned to everything. And now it's more like, I think this is great. Or, you know, even if it's not great, I'm like, this is something I can live with. And I don't have to, like, you know, mask myself all the time just because society tells me this one thing is, like, ugly. Mm-hmm. But going back to your point, there are some people who are just unattractive. But everybody's beautiful. Everybody has a beautiful quality, you know. And it's, like, sometimes it's, like, gold mining, but...
I love how you just tied it back, because I'm like, wow, that's such a beautiful sentiment. Like, she's talking about her flaws. She sees them in other... And it's, like, back to your point, though.
No, but I just didn't want you to think that I was like saying that your point was invalid, because it's not.
I forgot about my point.
It's
listening
so
to
real.
you.
It's so real.
Yeah.
And people are wrong for jumping down your throat about it because you said what no one else wanted to say.
Well, and then here's the thing. Reverse, it's almost like people want me to soak in that I'm... It's like they want to... Like, they can feel me being neutral and they're trying to, like, hammer it in. And I'm like, no, I don't want to have to give a shit, because now I'm, like you said, now I'm insecure because you're making me give a fuck about it. I actually didn't really care, but in researching Pretty Privilege, I'm like, I'm coming more to a place of like, okay, we don't need to put ourselves down in order to be so neutral. Like, because it was saying, like, if you don't recognize your own attractiveness, you're part of the problem. When I was like, because I'm gonna be very vulnerable, and even sharing this, I'm like, really, Kiana? My therapist said I have a problem not recognizing that I'm attractive. She's like, a lot of your insecurities are just built upon the fact that you're not recognizing you're attractive, because you can tell, because if you're taking pictures of yourself and I was just like, how is she picking up that this is a problem? She's like, you have a problem with being attractive. She's like, you think it means what? And I'm like, I think it means that I'm conceited if I notice, or that I'm a bad person, or that I'm a bitch. Yeah. So then I'll be like, you're the ugliest person ever. And I'll be like,
I think that you think that because we're intrinsically told that we need to attribute beauty to value. Like, to have value in our society, in certain situations, we have to be beautiful. So if you acknowledge your beauty, you have to cling on to that, because when you age, if you're sick, God forbid you get in an accident, if something happens to your beauty, then you feel you have no value anymore. Yeah. So I don't think you're wrong. I think you can feel beautiful in your appearance, but you shouldn't tie all the weight of your attractiveness to that, because it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's so true. Like, it could go any moment.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't pay crazy attention to it. Yeah. But then, like, just have a balance to be in the middle. Yeah. Because I waver, and I'll be like, I'm the ugliest person ever. And then I'll be like, this is all that I have. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no, and I think it's a lot of it's like having a healthy amount of delusion and being like, I'm the most beautiful person in the world. And you should tell yourself that every day, because beauty is not just, your face and your body, but also like celebrating the parts of yourself that are physical, because you know that your body is doing its job, your body is healthy, your body is working, and those kind of things. As a disabled person, it's a little bit tricky for me, because when my body is not working, it's even harder, especially because I have, when I get sick, I'll either lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of weight. So it's very hard for me to put my eggs in that basket. And that's why a lot of the time I'm on the opposite, or similar to you, where I'm like, I refuse to accept that I'm attractive, because if I lose that, I feel like I lose all my value.
So I see what you're saying. That's why I have to drop that part. So then it's not scary to be or to not be. Like,
I think you're right to have that instinct towards body neutrality, where it's like, I accept that I'm beautiful in this moment. And period. You don't have to be like, I'm beautiful, that's my identity. I think it's tying your identity into that's like dangerous, Yeah.
I'm just trying to find a balance. No, it's crazy. I finally feel like I'm to that point where I'm like, my worth is innate no matter what I look like.
Yeah.
And then also I feel like I'm paying more attention to how people are treating me and what's going on.
Yeah. And it's funny, I try to tell my friends, like, you're so beautiful right now because you look so happy, or you look so healthy, like you're glowing. Like, I love seeing you in your element. You look so beautiful reading that book and like laughing, or reading that book and telling me everything you know about geology, or telling me everything that you dreamed about last night and breaking it down because I see your eyes light up. Like, I like telling people those kind of things, because it's like yeah, you look physically beautiful, but you look extra beautiful because you're in your element. Yeah. And that's corny, but it's true.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That is not corny. I've never heard anything never heard anything like that in my life. No, that was amazing. Yeah. And no, I love that, and hope that we can all start looking at others that way. How can I expand my relation and definition to beauty? How can I go beyond looks, or even if it is looks, notice like really small things, or really just because that's another thing I read, that you assume pretty people are happy.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, shouldn't our more importance be like if the person is actually happy and actually doing okay, versus like how you look? Like, I'll never forget this. My sister, I love my sister. One time I had my nails done, right? I had been getting my nails done consistently. Mind you, when I was getting my nails done consistently, like the beginning of the last year to the year before, I was doing the worst I've ever been doing in my entire life. But one time she saw me, she didn't ask how I was doing. She was just like, oh, I see you got your nails done. Okay. And she's like looking at me up and down like, okay, like kind of like, okay, you got it together. And I'm looking at her like I was about to kill myself 2 hours ago, and you're looking at my nails, and to you, my nails are done. So
your nails are indicative of your mental state somehow. It's so funny you say that, because I remember, when we met, I was much heavier than I am now, and I'm still kind of recovering from this. But I had, back in late 2020, early 2021, I had a huge health flare and lost a ton of weight uncontrolled. Like, I couldn't keep weight on, I couldn't gain weight, I couldn't eat. I was very, very sick. And all people kept telling me, I stayed inside for maybe like 3 months because I was like not well. And when I finally started seeing friends again, everybody's first comment was, oh my God, you've lost so much weight, you look amazing. And I was like, I'm on my deathbed. I'm very unwell, actually, but thanks. Like, what the fuck? What? How was that your first comment?
Ooh.
Come on.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure I've done that too. And I had to realize that it's really hard not to say something, because I realized my family were so up each other's ass. We'll just say it. Like, when we lose weight, gain weight, we'll mention it. My mom, I have to tell her, like, stop saying anything. She'll just be like, okay, you look a little chunky today. And I'll be like, hi, how are you doing? Like, mom, do not do that. And I have definitely done it to friends. And I, like, especially when they, so, and in other cultures too, but definitely in the Black community, like, being heavier is perceived as being like more attractive, like curvy or just something. And one of my friends, she's normally not like normal thin. I'm trying to like look at the range in my head. Normal thin, not crazy thin, like slim, I guess. And she had gained some weight. Yo, I thought she looked bomb. Yeah. I'm like, okay, she got thick. And so I'm like, you look so good. You guys, like, you look so good. You gained weight. I see you gained some weight. You look good. Or something. I said, oh my God, that hurt her feelings so bad. Yeah. So bad. And I had I was like, oh, and she was like, please, like, next time don't say anything. And I was like, fuck, I'm so sorry. And it's just like,
it's like you thought it was a compliment. You genuinely meant it, but you never can tell. Like,
never can tell. And it's like,
especially for someone who ties their identity, like, because she was thin and people probably told her she was beautiful. When she had that physical change, she probably felt like that her value was stripped. Yeah. And so someone drawing attention to that made her sink inside herself, which is not your intention. But it's like, I think that because people put so much weight on this shit, it's immediately offensive no matter what. Yeah,
I'm learning to not ever say anything, or especially when my friends will be like, because I'm trying to validate everybody, right? Especially when my friends are like, oh, I look, I've gained so much weight. Instead of being like, oh, like, I'll just be like, how do you feel about that? Yeah. Like, you just tell me how you feel. Yeah.
I'm not about it. I'm always like, oh, I don't know what to say, because I'm like, if I say anything, it's the wrong thing.
No, because it's hard, because sometimes I'm like, because by like the 6th or 7th time they mention it, I'm like, yeah, you're fat now. Like,
I'm like,
how do you feel about it?
I can't say I didn't even notice, because then it's like, you didn't notice I lost weight, or you didn't notice I look gross now. Like, it's like, you can't win. I'm gonna steal your idea. I'm just gonna be like, how do you feel about that?
Yes, how do you feel about that? Just ask them how they feel, because I'm like, if I make a face, I'm not trying. Yeah, it's a sensitive.
Yeah, it's really sensitive.
It's a sensitive time. And even for me last year, I was diagnosed with ADHD. I tried Adderall for 2 weeks. I lost 15 pounds in 2 weeks.
You were really distressed about it.
Because my identity is tied into, like, my boobs got really small. Like, I lost my butt. Like, it was so sad. Yeah. And so, because I was also going through a lot of mental health stuff, by the time everybody realized, my mental health stuff was, like, up in the air. And they're like, oh, yeah, you have lost a lot of weight. And I'm like, no, bitch, that's not. That has nothing to do. That didn't even happen because of this. That happened because I was trying to, like, no, that has, and it was so frustrating because I kept hearing it, like, yeah, you're not doing really well. Like, you've lost a lot of weight. I'm like, yeah, but that was when I was actually doing better. When I walked, this is different. And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah. It's crazy how people tie your physical appearance to your mental state, how well you're doing. And it's interesting too, because I think, in the queer community, it's a beautiful thing that I think a lot of people in the community are, we can call it queering certain things. I mean, using it as a verb, but taking a traditionally ugly or unattractive characteristic and kind of reclaiming it as something that's beautiful in our community.
Like what?
So things like, I mean, I know molds are back right now, but that's been a traditionally queer hairstyle. And in our community, you know, I think it was brought back, you know, years ago now, but as kind of like a signal, like, hey, I'm, you know, a member of the community, but also it became like stereotypically hot in the queer community to have a mullet, and that was like a status of like being attractive. And so things like that, and body hair on women, that's a huge thing in the queer community, and it's widely accepted as like attractive, you know, and it's things like that. That I think it's beautiful that our community can do that. I just wish it was more widespread and accepted, that, you know, even if you're not showing off your hips, your chest, whatever, as a woman identifying person, doesn't mean that you're not still hot. You know what I mean? Like, I love seeing women dress, you know, in a way that men wouldn't look at and go, wow, because I'm like, you're dressing for you. You're not dressing for the male gaze or for society at large to think you're attractive. And that's one of the hottest things you can do. And then it becomes, I don't know, I guess it's just like the more I'm exposed to those things, the more I'm like, that's a hot characteristic. That's a hot trait, you know? Or even like having a unibrow. I think unibrows are so hot. And most people are like, ew, Groucho Marx. But I'm like, I love a unibrow. I love it. I wish I could grow one.
No, that's amazing that you... Wait. That's amazing that you say that, because I feel like I notice that I do that. I notice that I'm looking for the most revealing, tightest outfit sometimes. Yeah. And I'm like, and especially with me being a teacher now and having like, I have to get dressed every day. Yeah. So I have like more opportunities, and I've been like experimenting a little bit, and I love kids. So I don't know if you've seen it. It's a Gen Z thing, I guess, but like girls are wearing baggier pants. Yeah. And so I bought a pair of baggy pants, and I wore them, and I thought I looked kind of bummy because I wore like a really big jacket, or basically I was trying to be them. And they were like, Miss Blash, your outfit, wow, okay, Miss Blash, da, 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 da. And I was like, wow, I'm not showing anything off. You can't see my butt, you can't see anything. I feel comfortable, I feel good. But I noticed normally I'm like, what's the most revealing thing? And I'm like, Kiana, you don't need to dress like that. Like, just relax, because then I feel way more stressed.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I think too is beautiful about Gen Z, is that they're so like, not even just like wear what's hip, but wear what's like comfortable. It crosses gender lines. It crosses like expectation. Like, it's just like, wear what you like, where your interests are. Just don't conform because you feel like you have to conform. And I think that's one of the, And I mean, Gen Z hates on millennials a lot for, you know, sometimes good reasons, but I'm like, that's one of their best, I think, qualities as like a generation. Yes. I feel like we have so much to learn from them in that arena.
No, we do, because I'll be looking at the kids and I'm like, they don't give a fuck.
They don't give a fuck.
And it's cute.
It's so tight. Seeing somebody be like, oh, fuck it, I'm gonna wear my jeans backwards and on my head today. I'm like, you look sick. I love it.
No, it's really liberating, and I feel like, I don't know, those baggy jeans were like it was a moment for me, because I would have never worn baggy jeans, like the baggy kind of like flare ones, like I'm in a band or something.
You're in Boys to Men or something.
Not Boys to Men.
Backstreet Boys? Insane.
Probably. Unfortunately, I love it. But it was really liberating for me. I look at them all the time. I'm like, they're just wearing whatever.
I love that experience.
Yeah. No, it's really...
And that it was well received by the kids. It's kind of validating, right? You're like, I'm in with the kids.
No, it is. And they were like, I didn't know you had baggy pants. Okay. And I was just like, yes. And then I wore them again. It still hit. I don't know if those kids were absent the first time or something, but they were... I know. I loved it. And so our wrap-up question is, even when you feel ugly, do you recognize that you're still technically pretty? Or do you have moments where you're like, oh, that was just me? Like, it's still, whether it's like something happens or it's just how you're feeling that day, or even like a breakout, you're just like, oh, I feel so down in the dumps, and then something will happen, or you'll just have the you know what I mean?
That's a good question. I definitely have those days where I'm like, I'm so ugly, nothing can save me. Like, this is just, I'm like, I am just hideous. But then I remember, like, a lot of what makes me feel more beautiful externally is what's going on internally. Like, and I mean, like, in a physical sense, like, if I'm drinking water, if I'm getting enough sleep, if I'm doing my skincare routine, if I'm exercising, I notice that has a direct correlation, and it's really just like, how's my health doing? If I have my health, at least I know that like my body's doing what it's doing its best. That's as beautiful as I can look right then. And then getting the validation, I think, from my friends, my loved ones, my partner, the validation of like, even in my ugliest moment, they're like, you're so beautiful. And I think that even when I'm like, I don't believe you, I'm like, as long as the people I care about see that I'm beautiful in their eyes, at the end of the day, that's more than enough for me. Again, corny, but it's true. I'm like, I don't really care if Joe Schmo from across the street thinks I'm beautiful. The people that I care about, that's who I want to be beautiful to.
Whoa. Okay. You just made me think of something, that people that really struggle with self-esteem, aside from like societal pressures, maybe they're not hearing it from their loved ones. Because that just clicked in my head. Like, I was really only hearing it from my mom. And I'm just like, you're lying. You're my mother. Yeah. And I'm noticing that for whatever reason, no one was telling me. But no, seriously, I noticed that. I think I had that realization like maybe a couple months ago, but it was more so on like my self-worth. I didn't even think about it as in terms of how I look, but you just saying that just made it click. And my immediate family like love you guys, but it would be when I would meet like second cousins or whoever, they would say it. Yeah. And I would just be like, or an aunt or an uncle or something. Yeah. They would tell me and I'd be like, oh, but like I had close shady friends, that would not ever say anything unless I happen to look better than them. You look really pretty. Yeah. And I'm like, thanks.
Like an undertone there.
Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, why am I just hearing this now?
Yeah. Well, I think too, there's a lot of like, I mean, how many times have you been in a relationship where you see each other every day and they stop telling you as often that you look beautiful?
Yeah.
Or, you look so hot today, or you look really hot right now, things like that. And I think it's words of affirmation a little bit, but it's also like the exposure, like people stop appreciating your beauty when you're not in the routine of like openly doing it both ways. And I think a lot of it is like, the more we're comfortable telling each other they're beautiful, like other people are beautiful in beautiful moments, not just tied to physical appearance. I think the more people internalize that, it's repetition, right? It's exposure therapy, like exposing yourself to things that make you feel beautiful, and people who tell you you're beautiful, you're gonna start to believe it, just like on the flip side, like if people tell you you're ugly all the time, you're gonna believe it. It's just about, I think, your surroundings, the context, kind of like everything we've said.
That's amazing. Loved ones, the people that matter the most, the people that are most important. I watched The Fault in Our Stars recently. And I remember at the end, it was like the dude, I love how I can't remember their name, Augustus. He was like, I want to be well known, I want everyone to remember me. But then at the end, he concluded that as long as my loved ones love me and know me, then that's enough. And that hit me. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to take for granted the people around me who pour all this love and energy. It's like I'm so stuck on who's not saying that. It's like, wait, who is saying and who is in your corner in that way?
Yeah, 100%.
I love that. This has been such a smooth episode.
Really?
Yes, and I don't.
You and I could talk forever about anything.
I know. I'm like, we're probably gonna continue after, but no, this was so smooth. I loved all your insight, and I definitely can see us expanding. There's so many different ways to go.
I'm even thinking right now. I'm like, we could keep going for like 2 more hours.
Yeah, no, seriously. But all your insight was not corny. It was really, really amazing. Oh. And so I wanted to ask if you wanted to plug your vintage clothing store for everybody to check out, and then I'll post it too.
Check out Maple Canyon Vintage on Instagram and Etsy. We've got everything 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Really cool clothes, home decor, that kind of stuff. Check it out.
I love it. I love you. Thank you so much. Okay, y'all. Enjoy your weekend. Stay tuned.